Fantasy Football Almost Daily with your hosts, Paul Charchian, Christian Peterson, Matt Harrison, and Brian Johnson.
It is week number 16, Fantasy Championship week here at Fantasy Football Almost Daily. Paul Charchian, Christian Peterson, Brian Johnson. Most of you do not need help on the waiver wire at this point. Now, last week it was a little bit different because there were so many injuries. This week, there were not nearly as many injuries, so I don't think people are combing the waiver wire as much.
I'm in a league where I'm in the championship, and I'm desperate for a wide receiver. I have A.J. Green. I have Terrell Pryor.
I think A.J. Green's going to play.
A.J. Green may play.
Yeah.
Can we trust him to start?
He goes
him?
up against Houston, by the way.
Yeah.
That's a
AJ
tricky
versus
matchup.
AJ.
It's AJ on AJ.
Boye versus versus Green. Yeah. So I'm in.
As a short AJ aside,
I can.
This is good because this is going to be a short podcast. There's not that much to talk about in this week 16 free agency. My daughter named Audrey. The grandmother was like, all I care about the middle name is that it starts with J, so I can call her AJ. I can't wait to call her AJ. She's never called her AJ. We did it, too.
Well, you don't see a lot of girls with shortened nicknames with initials.
Not usually, but it's kind of cool. I like it. It's a little sporty. But I don't think she's going to be covering AJ Green this week.
And so anyways, I'm in a situation where basically because of Terrell Pryor and how awful he's been, I'm in a situation where I'm looking for potentially better options.
And Terrell Pryor's hurt now.
Yeah.
Bad quarterbacking. He's hurt.
Easy on my guy. It's RG3's fault.
It is RG3.
It is. I think we're all on board
Pryor,
with your guy. All right, let's start at the quarterback position for those that need to find one here. Brian Johnson, by the way, doing all the legwork on this week's free agency, recommending Matt Barkley, available in the vast majority of leagues. He's played shockingly well.
Yeah, in freezing cold weather, too. He had a pretty good game. They got Alshon Jeffrey back, Chicago did, so he's got weapons. And Washington this week, we all saw they're struggling big time. I think they've allowed 300-yard
Their
passers.
safety play has been brutal.
Yeah, Cam Newton got healthy against them. He was playing awful leading into that game.
Mm-hmm.
It's Josh Norman, and that's it. That's the only good defender they have. So there's hope for Barkley if you are in a pinch. I think he's the one guy that's available in those leagues that's out there.
All right, let's go to the running back position. Kenneth Farrell mostly owned at this point, and frankly, I thought he'd have a better game last week than he ended up having. Didn't do. Frankly, he looked like Kenneth Farrell.
He looked like who we thought he was.
That's right. I just figured the opportunity would be so good that maybe he could overcome his Kenneth Farrow-ness, but it didn't work out. It's all of that times 10 this week for the Browns. So everybody gets it done against the Browns on the ground. You can't be bad enough to not be effective.
Yeah.
So in the unlikely event he's available, obviously you pick him up and you start him this week. Cleveland's given up 19 touchdowns to running backs, and I don't think Melvin Gordon's going to go.
Unless Melvin Gordon goes.
And if Gordon goes, then obviously
they don't have any incentive, right? They're out of everything. There's no reason to rush Melvin Gordon back in this game.
I mean,
he wants to come back because he's like 3 yards short of 1,000, I think.
Oh, is he?
And I think teams generally want to have a 1,000-yard rusher on their team. It's a nice thing.
But last year with Melvin Gordon, it was at this time of year that we were saying they're going to do whatever it takes to get him a rushing touchdown.
Good point.
Because nobody wants to go into a whole offseason saying our lead running back had no touchdowns, and they didn't manage it.
Good point.
For those, Kenneth Farrow not available in most leagues, but Robert Turbin's available in pretty much all of them.
Yeah. Understandably so, but you go ahead. You want to talk?
Well,
about Dick Turbin?
just because he's got 4 touchdowns in the last 5 games, which is seemingly random. Nobody's really making a big deal out of this like they are in Buffalo with the Mike Gillislee, LaShawn McCoy thing. Maybe because people aren't relying on Frank Gore the same way that they're relying on LaShawn McCoy. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, Indianapolis is bringing in Robert Turbin for the short yardage stuff, and he's getting the job done. So it's one of those desperation plays where you're hoping for. I don't think he has more than 7 touches in any of these last 5 games. So you're hoping for the 1 touchdown.
Yeah, it's against Oakland this week.
Against Oakland, that's still not a great run defense. Yeah. They weren't great last week, although Kenneth Farrow couldn't take advantage.
For those who play in Week 17, obviously we don't think you should be playing in Week 17, but if you're a Week 17 player, you own Frank Gore, definitely go grab Turbin, I guess, because Frank Gore could break his hip at any moment. You'd think at that age.
Correct. Let's go to the wide receivers. Tyler Lockett was a guy that I loved going into the season, based on how well he finished last year. But then he got hurt early and then missed a bunch of games. Then he tried to play hurt, and it's only been now about a month since he's been fully healthy. And funny, he's been good.
Yeah, he's been good, and he's made Jimmy Graham basically an afterthought in Seattle as well. But the matchup this week on paper, it doesn't look good against Arizona and Patrick Peterson, but that certainly hasn't mattered in recent weeks. We saw what the Saints just did to him last week, and some of these speedier wide receivers, I think, are the types that the smaller, quicker guys are the ones that tend to give Peterson trouble. And frankly, there's no guarantee that Peterson is even going to lock in on Tyler Lockett.
Well, why would he? So. Other than the fact that Baldwin plays out of the slot mostly, and Peterson rarely goes into the slot. So, maybe he'll be on Lockett, but I think he'll probably play his natural side. I think it's the left side where he prefers to play. And I'm guessing that the curse Lockett thing isn't going to be so great that he's going to follow
enough
anybody.
for him to follow him, I wouldn't think.
And Arizona has got to be kind of mentally checked out at this point, too.
Clearly.
They're not going to be coming in to Seattle gangbusters or anything like that. So I think Seattle should stomp them in this one. So
I've been wrong on Seattle like 4 straight weeks. Thought they'd be good against the Packers. Thought they'd beat the Rams, but I thought they'd struggle because the Rams can get a lot of pressure on their defensive line, right? They got Donald and Quinn played in that game, and I'm like, all right. This is gonna, they're gonna get a bunch of pressure. I've been wrong on them a lot. They're a hard team for me, at least for me to figure out. Let's go to Cameron Meredith. He's been really pretty good. 3 straight games. I think he had your notes here. Had put up 9 catches, 104 yards last week, and prior to that, he had 67 yards and 72 yards and a touchdown. Before that,
yeah, he looks good too. I don't know if you've watched him play. He's got good size. He runs good routes. Didn't have any of those brutal drops that destroyed Matt Barkley and the Bears a few weeks ago. So he's been pretty reliable. Now Alshon Jeffrey's back in the mix. They face the Redskins this week. So you would assume that Jeffrey sees more of Josh Norman than Meredith.
He should, yeah.
And that puts Meredith against Bashad Breeland, who was just god-awful. And I don't know if you saw Cam Newton last night. They got a little chippy at the end of that game. He basically pointed at Breeland laughing, saying, "You suck." That's what I deduced from that. And he's absolutely right.
Right. Well, and think about the trash talking opportunities, really in perpetuity. If you were to go into your fantasy championship game and start Matt Barkley and Cameron Meredith, and win it, you'd be a legend for many years.
It's tempting to do that just for the legend
factor.
To do it. Yep. Yeah. Maybe you're playing in the toilet bowl and you want to become a legend at the toilet bowl.
Toilet bowl legend.
That might be toilet bowl legend with Barkley and Cameron Meredith. Tight end, and I'm glad you picked up on this one because this was the biggest takeaway I had from Sunday's games was the guy to go get's Ryan Griffin, who's going to be, I don't know what his DFS dollars are going to be like, but boy, is he going to be a compelling play. CJ Fedorowicz had a nice run through the middle of the season where he was a totally viable fantasy tight end, and at that time he was still giving up like 3 or 4 targets a game to Ryan Griffin.
Yep.
With Fedorowicz out, Griffin's getting all of it. I think he had 8 targets last week, something in that ballpark.
Caught all 8 of them, too.
Caught all 8, yeah, he was 8 for 8.
Well,
and a tough matchup. Jaguars are tough against tight ends on paper, so.
They are.
How much did Savage play in that game?
They
Quite
pulled
bit,
him
right? At the half?
Before.
He came in the third quarter.
Third quarter?
So I think it
was
after
somewhere in midday.
halftime.
I just can't quite remember if it was slightly before or slightly after.
So is this one of those B squad all-star type things?
Oh, that could be.
Where Savage has been throwing to Ryan Griffin as the backups, throughout practice all year long.
That could be. Maybe. I like that angle. All right. Well, that's it. Best of luck. Hopefully you don't need these free agents this week. Up for debate whether or not we'll even do this next week in week 17, but I'm leaning not because at that point people shouldn't be playing and
simply as a protest against people who may be stupidly playing in week 17, right. I think we should not do it.
Can it? All right.
Executive decision has been made.
Nobody's arguing. Nobody in this room's arguing.
All right, good.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on Tuesdays all year long. We will not see you at Tuesday next week, but we'll be back with something next week. Probably playoff stuff. We should do a playoff podcast. Yeah, absolutely. All right. We'll do that next week. Bye-bye.